Welcome to our first preview teach, where we're going to go through how to play Solo 175, a Kickstarter game that is launching at the time of recording right now. So make sure you look at the comments below where we'll add a link to the Kickstarter campaign. We've also made a drink specifically paired to this game called the Silvershine, a drink actually in the world of Solo 175. So join me at the table where we learn how to play Solo 175. In Solo 175, we are CEOs of newly incorporated entities trying to gain control of the solar system's economy. You win a game of Solo 175 by gaining the most influence in that game. But as a legacy game, there are many other levers to pull which will help you win the campaign as a whole. I've really enjoyed playing Solo 175 because it really brings that deck building or bag building in this instance with the worker placement and economic strategy that really appeals to me as a player. So let's jump to the board. As this is a Kickstarter campaign, we are only able to play this at this point in time on TTS. We have actually worked with the developers to make a really good TTS mod, so make sure you head into the link below and have a look at that. So in this instance, I'm playing as a solo player game, and we're going to go through the different actions we can do. A game of Solo 175 plays out in 3 phases: the draw phase, the assign workers, and the action phase. In the draw phase, we're going to be drawing tiles equal to our available worker spaces and placing them in those spots. On the first turn, that's really easy. We only have 4 tiles in our bag. As the game goes through, we'll be drawing more tiles and placing them out on our board. In this instance, you've seen I've drawn 1 of each action worker, and now we move on to the second phase. In the second phase, we're going to be assigning our available workers to the actions in our player board. And there are 3 main actions within that board. You have our higher actions, which will allow us to gain extra workers that we can use in our player board. You have our general actions like the move actions, outpost, and trade actions. And then we have our advanced actions, which will actually remove one of our players from the board, but do very powerful actions that will actually affect our endgame scoring. For this first turn, I'm going to focus on getting another pilot. So I'm going to take the engineering action, I'm going to take the general worker, and I'm going to take the negotiation worker. I'm going to place them onto my 3 Nakamura academies, and then my leftover pilot I'm actually going to use to fly my ships around. You'll actually notice that these 2 first phases can be done asynchronously. That means that each player can do all of these actions by drawing available workers and assigning them to the player board until every other player is up to that same step. In the third phase, the meat of the game, we're actually all going to be taking turns resolving 1 of our available actions. As the first player, or in this instance a solo player, I'm actually going to get to go first, so I get the choice between activating my Nakamura Academy or activating my pilot. The 5 available higher actions allow us to get extra workers, either engineering, automation, piloting, general, or negotiation. Each actual action can only be used within the associated, with the exception of our AI system. These are pink tiles which we only get to use once we've activated them, and they are wildcards. So if I was to activate this Nakamura Academy, I would take these 3 tiles, I would put them onto my rest, and then I would move up to here and I'll grab the pilot. When I grab a tile from this also goes onto my rest board, and anytime you can't draw any tiles from your bag, you put all of these tiles into your bag, give it a shuffle, and then you'll be drawing from those. This happens with all 5 higher actions: engineering, AI systems, piloting, or negotiation. There is one extra thing you need to know when activating these tiles. And if you look at these tiles, you see down the bottom right hand corner, you have a hire bonus. All of these have a specific hire bonus with the exception of AI systems because you're getting a wild card, which is very important by itself. When you get that worker, you get to activate that hire bonus straight away. For pilots, you get to make a move action. For negotiation, you get to remove an outpost from your player board, and that goes into your built outposts ready for you to assign. It actually also opens up an available worker space, so make sure you use this action pretty frequently until you've unlocked all 4 available workers. The general workers will allow you to take a trade action, and we'll go through what trade actions mean a bit later. The engineering allows you to do the outpost action, and again we'll go through what outpost actions are later. Once you have taken your action, the next player will get their turn. They will take one action from their boards and then move around so everyone plays an action until it comes back to me. I then have only one more action I can do, so I'm going to do the move action. And this is the first of our general actions. On a move action, I'll get to move my ship from the starting location of Earth to anywhere on the playboard. With the playboard, you'll notice there are 2 zones. We have Zone 1 surrounded by blue and Zone 2 surrounded by grey. I can then move to any of these locations, and if there is a special action on that location, for instance here, there is this special action of resources. The resources will actually have been placed on the board to start the game, and if I was to go to that location, I'll claim this resource as my own to use in future turns. So I'll take this down, put it into my play area, and now I have a resource. That finishes my action. I'd move on to the next player, and once again it would go around. As I have no more actions after this phase, it would end the round. We would do any consolidation to clean up our boards, and then would move back to the first phase of drawing. As I mentioned before, if at any time your bag is empty, you'll grab all workers in the city rest, place them into your bag, give that bag a shuffle, and then start drawing from that bag until you have filled all assigned workers. This is now the second round, and I'm going to do an example round for you to see. So I've done the first phase and drawn my tiles. I then get to assign my workers. And in this phase, I'm actually going to do a trade action by placing 2 tokens into my trade. I then have an engineer, a general worker, and a pilot. And you'll actually notice that is perfect for actually getting the AI systems. So I'm actually going to put these tiles into here. I'll then announce to everyone that I've finished my assign workers phase, and I'll wait for everyone to go. So that finishes the second phase of assign workers. Once every player has finished this, we'll move on to the third phase. That third phase, as the first player, I'll get to take the first action. We already know how to do the AI system, so now I'm going to show you the second general action, which is trade. Placing both of these tiles into my spent city workers, I'm going to claim the action of trade, or IPTC. Moving up to this section at the top, you will notice we have 3 trade actions. The first trade is the Bank of Urushi, and in this one you will actually just claim 1 token and your claims will go up by 1. This tracker has 0 to 9. If at any stage you go above 9, just use the 10s or 20s tracker to actually keep that track. The second trade action is to build, and using the IPTC you can actually build based on the card you're building in. So the certain cards have ability to build your outpost, and you'll see this in your bottom. These will use 1 resource and 1 money. By placing those 2 down, you will then get to place one of your 4 star bases, and when revealing those star bases, placing that onto the player board that you built. You will then get to do the action that it revealed. And you'll notice within these actions that each one is different. This one will allow you to do a move action, this one will allow you to do a trade action, this one will allow you to do an outpost, and this one will give you 2 resources instantly. The third and final resource is to buy or trade resources. Using the stack, you could buy a resource for 3 gold, or if you had a spare resource, you could sell it back for 3 gold, placing those tokens back into the resource bag. And those are the 3 trade actions that you start with in the first game of this campaign. Further trade actions will be added throughout the game as you play, but we'll get into those when you're playing them. The next action is the outpost, and in the outpost you'll once again take the tiles from that and place them onto your city leave. That is consistent regardless of what action you're taking, except for the advanced actions, where those extra player tiles in this instance are negotiation, engineer, or AI pilot or general worker would actually go back onto the associated tile. With the outpost, we'll actually be using these 2 tiles. And throughout the game, we're going to be building outposts and then assigning them to the solar system. Using the green icons, you'll notice that anytime we want to, we'll build outposts. Once we've activated an outpost, we flip that card over and you'll notice on the other side that it actually changes that dynamic slightly. So I could use this to block other players from building many outposts at once or from getting too many credits at once. The same occurs with assigning outposts, in which we can assign 2 outposts, or once I've taken that turn, it flips and now you assign the outpost to different zones. Within the first game, we'll actually only be playing with 2 zones, so this is powerful but not as powerful as later games. And those are the 2 zones. Building outposts will grab outposts from the outpost deck, and assigning outposts will place outposts from our built section onto the player board. We can't place outposts where we already have one, but we can place outposts where our opponents are. That now takes us through all the general and higher actions for our turn. The 3 final actions we could take are vote, fund, or peacekeeping. If we're taking a vote action, we will spend that worker back to the negotiation pile and we'll take an item from the voting deck. Make sure if you are playing on TTS to put this into your hidden area so no one can see. Hovering over the tile, we can change the state to 1, 2, or 3 based on the vote we want to make. Flip the card over so no one else can see and place it into the voting deck. This will actually have big effects to the end of the game, so make sure you're voting based on the political party you actually want to win. Each political party will actually increase the score value based on their particular values. The Workers' Union Party will actually double any score of the peacekeeping military. The United Federalists will double any work efforts done towards building the megastructure. The Brave New Dawn will double any of the scores you associate with your bases. The second advanced action is to fund a megastructure. Spending the engineer back into the engineering deck will actually allow you to claim 1 megastructure tile that you will keep for end game scoring. The third advanced action is the peacekeeping force. Using either of the AI, piloting, or general workers, you'll actually place these onto the special peacekeeping section. And these sections will actually be modifiers to the endgame scoring, which we're going to go through in a moment. And that is all of the actions you can take on 1 turn or round within Solo 175. At any time, once they've removed all player tokens from the Niven outpost, that triggers endgame. And this round will be the last round by which anyone can take actions. So make sure you're watching how many tokens every player has left. Once you've finished the round and the game is over, you will actually go to endgame scoring. In endgame scoring, you have 5 different components to score. The first scoring action is based on how many credits you have. For every 2 credits you have, you gain 1 influence point. The second is mined resources. For every mined resource you have, you gain 2 influence. The third is for bases, and you'll actually gain 1 influence for every pilot in the UFSS Peacekeeping HQ. This score could actually be doubled if the Brave New Dawn won the election. The fourth scoring is the megastructure funding, and you will score based on the amount of AI in the UFSS Peacekeeping HQ. It is important to note the megastructuring funding can be doubled if the United Federalists won the election phase. The next scoring is UFSS Peacekeeping Force, where you gain 2 influence for every military tile you gain during the game. You will actually also score double these amount of points if the Workers' Union Party won the election. The final way of scoring is presence. At the end of the game, tally how many presents are actually in each zone, remembering that zones are surrounded by the colour. So you've got Zone 1 in blue, Zone 2 in grey, and further zones added to the game as you continue playing. Each time you score based on how many outposts, which will score you 1, bases, which will score you 2, and ships, which will score you an additional 2 into those zones. The player with the most in each zone will score points based on how many general workers were in the UFSS Peacekeeping HQ. It is important to note that this will not actually be doubled like any of the previous political parties. 3 political parties modify the USS Peacekeeping Force, the megastructure funding, and the bases. There is a modification that can happen with the presence, and that is actually based on where the megastructure is being built for that game. You'll notice that in this example, we're playing the first scenario and the megastructure is being built on Earth in Zone 1. So the player that wins Zone 1 would actually score 5 points for the megastructure plus however many number of tokens were in the general workers. Add up all the points associated with your score and you will actually end up with an end game score. Now it is important to note this is a legacy game. So what will actually happen as we go through the campaign, you'll have different achievements and unlocks that will be revealed on the backside of your player board. The player that won the game will actually get to place tokens. So for instance, the player with the most presence in Zone 1 and 2 would mark off the boxes associated. The player that won the megastructure funding, base building, or peacekeeping will get to mark off their token. The player that had the most resources left at the end of the game, as well as the most money left at the end game, and then the player that had the most influence at the end of the game would assign in here. This would also trigger awards and extra things that will happen throughout the campaign, but to keep this video short, we're only going to touch on what you need for your first game. As we said, this is a live Kickstarter at the time of recording this video. So make sure you check out below where you'll be able to see this game on Kickstarter. There are a lot of great videos in there and the world building to this has been amazing. We've also created a board game bar where we made the Silver Shine, which is a great drink to drink while playing this game to really immerse yourself in the story and the world building that they've done for Solo 175. We'll be playing this live on Twitch and you can see our social media links below. If you missed that live stream, we'll be uploading it as a video on demand after we've recorded that. Make sure you check out all the other content we have on this channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video or on the Kickstarter campaign for Solo 175. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!